Well, I did not realize you were back.
Well, talk funny to me, I like it.
Oh, really?
Yes, I do.
You're gonna have such a good presentation. I just know it. Um, no, I did pull some cards though. Do you want to know? Do you want to know what our card reading for today's session is?
Yes, I do. Do tell.
So, we're doing the dragon cards today. I got the
Oh,
snakes. We got the
really?
dragon. It's a whole vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Um, And so this one is like not a traditional tarot deck, but they've got like numbers and they have Roman numerals. The Roman numerals are kind of akin to the major arcana. They hold like a little extra weight. So I pulled three cards and two of them are the like major arcana of this deck. And it's really nice because they're on like either side and then there's the number card in the middle. And the two that we got are time and resources. And so it's really talking about how we have, a lot of time and resources. They all align to star systems. So if you want, I can tell you what those are. Um, but basically, yeah, it's saying like, do your thing. You're doing awesome. And then the middle card is the number two, which you know how much I love twos. Hey, Melissa, let me know when you can hear us.
I can hear you.
Hey,
Hi,
Hey.
hello.
I
Hi,
did
lovely.
I did a
Beautiful.
reading for today, so I'm going through that. But we have two cards that are time and resources. I know we've been talking to you about the retreat. Tiffany, I don't think I told you, but both Melissa and I had dreams that it sold out completely, and we're like at the retreat, and it's so much fun.
Woo!
I'm like so freaking excited.
What an affirmation.
I know, right? And also I feel like I just talk to Melissa a lot in my sleep because I have dreams about you. Like,
That doesn't surprise me
more
one
than
bit.
I actually talk to you, I have dreams about you.
Yeah.
But this middle card is really nice. It's believing in yourself. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got this
Mhm.
lady with the dragon
That
vibes.
Like
is
a
so
fire
cool.
dragon. I
Yeah, and it says, in any given moment, fire can rain down from your powerful jaw. Wow, I did not realize how aggressive this was.
Oh.
Fire can rain down from your powerful jaws as you let the world hear you roar. Seize and lay siege to entire kingdoms with a single swipe of your claws. Dominate any given situation. You are a mighty and powerful dragon. Now roar!
roar, yes. Wow. That's powerful.
That's very powerful.
I know, I dig it. Very fit. Yeah, how are you, Melissa? I
I'm
guess I
doing,
talked to you yesterday. I was
I'm,
gonna say, I
yeah,
haven't talked to
fairly
you in a while.
good. I'm just still at work, or I'm taking the call at work, so I didn't have to like drive home and stuff. So,
Yeah, I get that. Me too, except I work from home.
yeah, exactly. I
I do
love how you
too.
guys have the same middle name.
I know. Someone actually asked me if you and I were related, and I was like, oh, no, no, we're not. That was just
Actually, we are. It's just on a soul level.
okay. I
Uh-huh.
love it. Okay, I'm into that.
Past
We
lives.
definitely meant like, is that bitch your cousin?
Well, even the night we met, that we just both ended up on stage next to each other with the middle name Rose. And then all of our answers were syncing up. Like the stuff you were saying was flying out of my deck as you were saying it. It was just divine, divine meeting.
That's amazing. I love that story. Ooh, I got the chills.
I love it. Thank you for the validation. I'm like, I know it's going to go so great, but I'm going to Denver tomorrow, and it's the first time I've gone like on a plane to go to one of these events. And so I'm like, totally fine. But I'm also like, am I bringing everything? Oh my God. Like, because a lot of times I'll show up and I'll be like, I feel like wearing something completely different now. And I just can't do that. I'm like restricted to the things that I bring. And I'm bad about overpacking anyway. So
Ooh.
it'll be great.
You'll have a great trip.
You're going to
Yeah.
be fabulous.
Oh, I know it. I'm so excited. I've been getting so much validation. So I'm really not know when you're like, I'm most worried about myself. Like I know the whole universe will be fine and will show up and love me. Most worried that I'm gonna get so freaking nervous and flip out that I'm gonna screw it
You won't.
Can't happen.
You won't.
up. My biggest fear is that I'm just needlessly freaking out. I think you saw that yesterday, Melissa.
No, it wasn't that bad.
I appreciate it.
It wasn't straight up tantrum.
I get at that level, I'm like also moving in the right direction. I'm like actively taking steps to get things done. I'm just tripping out about it. But yeah, I don't think we
Well,
actually had anybody. Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
I
You
was just
said,
gonna say you're doing it in spirit time.
oh,
You're doing it in your
completely.
own timing, and it's gonna be magical and perfect.
That was
I
our
love
card
that.
today too. We got the time card. Got plenty of time. Just moving it
That's right.
around.
Mhm.
That's right.
Spirit time. I like that. I don't think I've heard that.
It came from Alicia.
Okay.
She said
There
it to
we
me
go.
one night,
Yeah,
and
for
I'm
her
like, I'm
laugh.
keeping that forever because it is spirit
Like,
time. Like
how
when you're
long
on
is
with a
this
client,
session? And I'm like, spirit time.
yeah, get there when I get there. I'm done when I'm done.
When the times intercede and cross, and it'll happen.
But yeah, I didn't. Yeah, nobody signed up formally, but I let practitioners come for free. So I think Sadie is the only one we've been regularly seeing lately. So if you want to get going, how do you feel? Are you ready?
Anytime, whenever.
On spirit time, baby. It's whenever the
That's
spirit,
right.
whenever the
That's
spirit leads
right.
you.
If we need another minute for people coming in, that's fine. If we don't, let me know.
I was gonna just text Sadie quickly just in case I'm a forgetter, so not that that's terrible, but do you know what? I have been seeing so many, like in the best way, like little buggies. Like I saw like the most beautiful blue snail today. This
Mhm.
giant praying mantis just showed up on my doorstep. Like
Mhm.
all these like fun, like yeah, bugs, like straight up bugs, but like really cool ones.
I feel like that's really magical. It's like elementals coming to say hello and bless you.
Exactly. I
That's a good
can't even
thought.
find this thing. Okay, well, I can't even find it, so that's gonna tell us enough.
Well,
No
if
text
anybody comes on, it's okay.
often. I
All
realize
right.
I am wearing a shirt today. I know it looks like that.
Oh, dang it. I just moved the screen so I can't see it.
Oh,
'Cause I
that's
was
okay.
trying to share my screen. Come on.
That like looked like I was topless.
It did for a minute, but I knew you had something on.
I promise I'm fully clothed. But yeah, so I'm really excited. I know we might put this on some other things, so I'll just do a quick intro. We're welcoming today Tiffany Rose. She is a galactic genealogy specialist. Our theme today, she's going to talk through story time. She's going to go through past lives and kind of these circuitous themes through different lives. Starting all the way back into Lemuria and Atlantis and even further, and coming up through different generations into modern day. I'm just so thrilled to know that Tiffany and I are soul sisters in some way, and I really am excited to see all the links that she has to share with us today. So Tiffany, thank you so much for being here and being with us and sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for that excellent introduction. I'm going to try to share my screen and hopefully the computer doesn't go berserk. Oh, yay, it's working.
We see it. It's perfect.
Okay. Well, a minute ago it kicked me off and then it put me back on the Zoom, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'll give you a holler if there's any issues, but I think
Okay, and also you are the timekeeper. If I spend too long on any one subject, kick me along or we won't make it to the end. And we may not either, and that's okay. There's a lot here. There's plenty that's super interesting. The first disclaimer that I will give is none of this can be proven except for the actual pictures of myself, which, you know, that's proof. But the past life stories, you have to take it with a grain. Use your judgment. Does it feel true? Does it not? And if it doesn't, that's okay too, because I didn't believe a lot of these stories when I first heard them. In fact, some of these lives I heard about, wow, like almost 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I was that? Sure, cool, that's neat. And then I just totally forgot about it until other things came up that made me remember. And then more storylines were, you know, becoming filled in at that point. So these images on the front are all different versions of me. And there are many, many more, but this is just to get you started. I have been a man, a woman, a mother, a father, a warrior, um, a monk, a nun. It goes on and on. But I'm going to show you what I have found so far. And like I said, none of this can really be proven. So just consider it a really fun, entertaining story. And I will try to tie it into some of the details I can tie into my current life. Now, I can't say that about all of the details, but quite a few. And some of them are just laughable. Like, I just couldn't believe it. So I worked really hard on this list yesterday, and I won't be able to see you girls for a minute. I just moved the screen up so that we could see the whole slide. So I'm mostly looking at Earth lives on this one. And I didn't go deep into the galactic because that would be like a 5-hour session if we tried to do too many. So this is a basic outline of what I got. Now, some of these have been told to me by other people, which is why I have credits down here. Of course, I put myself, but my friend Marie Arnold, you'll see her later in the slides, Alicia Rose, who's our host tonight, Abby Black, another psychic, Dr. Misty, my medical intuitive, several different boyfriends, sorry, and probably more people have contributed to this list. So I did not come up with all of this by myself. Some of these I was told, like I said, almost 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, that's neat, and then moved on and forgot about it, and it didn't mean anything to me at the time. So I'll just start with pre-Lemuria. I did get that I was hanging out around Earth pre-Lemuria, so non-physical, more etheric. And then when I asked about Lemuria, I got that there was one but really long life. And it was like I had a physical body, but it was a little bit more etheric, maybe more likened to 5D. You can see that there are times listed here. These times, all of this, I have a pendulum sheet that has all of these eras on it with the times and that I can ask questions with. So I did use that to get some of these answers. Atlantis, I got that I had quite a few lives, and I don't know if this is true or not, but yesterday I was getting that they were all female. That may not be true, but that's just what I got yesterday. Ancient Egypt, I'm pretty confident that I was a male all 3 times. So, I mean, we're bouncing back and forth between male and female, and that's just to keep our divine masculine and feminine balanced. So, and who's to say that if I were female in all of these, that I wasn't living lives as men elsewhere, off world, or, you know, even on world. Then ancient Egypt, I don't have a lot of information about yet because those lives were just coming through. And I just yesterday had a realization that makes it so even more interesting, which I'll get to later in the slides. Mesopotamia, again, I don't have a ton of information about that, but I did get, because I've been obsessed with India for many years. My mom has been traveling back and forth, studying with gurus and monks and enlightened masters and sending the transmissions back to me and my brother. I have several brothers, so she sends it to all of us, but Tom and I usually feel it. Anyways, I got that my very first time in India was during the Mesopotamia era, and that really surprised me. The Hindu part, not so much, because all world religions are represented in my house, kind of like India. All gods are welcome almost. You know, everybody is accepted for whatever faith they have in my house. Anyways, moving on, ancient Mayan, quite a few. And I had no clue about the ancient Mayan ones until very recently, even though I happened to stumble into the Mayan jungles no clue that it was tied to my past lives until much later. Um, and also an interesting fact about the ancient Mayan era, and I don't know which of these lives because I haven't gone deep enough into it yet to figure it out. But recently I was working with my medical intuitive. Her name's Dr. Misty, and she goes by Medical Misty on Etsy. I was working with her, and she found I have some illnesses that I've been struggling with. She found the emotion of hate stuck in my uterus and areas from 2000 BC, and it took her a little bit to figure this out. Like, she had to go through some questions and figure it out, but that it was contributing to my current illness, and she cleared it. I asked her if it was related to rape, and she said yes. And it doesn't mean whether I was raped or whether I raped someone else. It could be either version, but either way, I had been carrying that with me for a really long time and had been affecting my health probably my whole life. Just the doctors didn't figure it out soon enough. So that's an interesting fact that came in about ancient Mayan era. Ancient Greece, I've so far only got 2 lives there. The first was female and like very early Christian, which who knows what they were really like at that era. And then the second one as a male Vedic in India again, which made my heart happy when I saw that. So I knew that there had to be a reason why I just love India so much. I knew that there had to been past lives to that. But and then ancient Rome, I had 2 where I was with the Essenes, at least 2 where I was with the Essenes and Yeshua out in the caves of Qumran. And we'll see some pictures of that down the slides. And then also a couple where I was with the Druids. And one of these, I channeled a life where I was off-world in Surma, which is, I believe, the Virgo constellation, where we were druids in Surma, but I got that we came onto Earth. So one of these lives, I'm not sure if I incarnated as a human right away or if I was coming down as a star being, but that shows in my galactic chart too. And then the third life of India in Kolkata, which isn't surprising to me because I had a pen pal for many years in Kolkata. And I loved watching the Mother Teresa movie. I was so inspired by that, and the Gandhi movies, and all of the I really appreciated the Eastern cultures quite a bit. So it wasn't surprising to me, the India connection with all of that too. And then the Persian Empire, I don't think I have a lot on that one, but it's there. I haven't asked yet. I haven't gone deep enough yet. So then when we move into the Mediterranean Byzantine Empire, I got Korea, and I did not figure this one out by myself. Marie actually channeled it after so my good friend Marie that you'll see down in the slides, we got that she and I were in the ancient Mayan era during a life that I was sacrificed. And what happened in that moment when we figured it out was just uncanny, and I couldn't explain it. And then she got home and started telling me more about my past lives and stuff like, she said, you've been royal in a lot of lives. And I was like, actually, I've been told that. And that's when I started looking up this medieval era life and really digging deep, and then going, whoa, this is connected to my current life. This is wild. But back up here to Korea, it was interesting that my dad had taken a trip to Korea. I think he was on a month-long trip traveling over in those areas. And when he came home, he brought me Korean money and Korean calligraphy set, which is in my cedar chest, and I had completely forgotten about. And then what was that? Marie told me right as I moved. Oh, yeah, right as Marie had texted me about the Korean past life, and she was still trying to figure out what it was, but she had kind of a rough era. We both flipped out because I had moved a wallet in my closet that happened to have that Korean money sitting under it. So it was just sitting there glaring at me, and I hadn't thought anything of it because my daughter Cami wanted a wallet and I just gave her one, like whatever. And then Marie texted me that, and I walk into my closet not even thinking about it, and there's that Korean money sitting right there. And then I'm thinking about the calligraphy set, and I'm like getting chills, like, wow, this is just wild. So you'll see more on that. I do have that on a slide. There's limited info on the internet about that era, so it's only one slide. And then Japan recently came in, And I wasn't surprised with that either, because for a brief time, I did have a boyfriend that really wanted me to go to Japan with him. And we were studying Japanese, like, konnichiwa. I was like totally into it. And yeah, this says from Umbridge because that's just me being funny, because I don't know what life goes there. And that is a quote from one of my favorite movies that I just didn't take off the slide. So humor. I'll keep going with the medieval era. France, England, you'll see that, and then some monk nun lives. And then the early modern era, Goa, India, and I was a female and some kind of Christian. And then it leads into the modern era. And some of these, I have to say, really surprised me. I did not see them coming. And I do think that there's more that can be added to this list, but this is just what Spirit has shown me so far. And then before I switch the slide, I was not expecting, when I dowsed, how many times have I lived in India? And I got 5. And then I said, okay, show me the first one, show me the second one. And I went on. But when I got to the 5th one, it literally said future. I wasn't expecting that. I was really thinking it was going to say 5 lives that, I just didn't think it was going to say future. So anyways, that was a surprise to me. This is just showing you my astrology when I was born. And you'll see that I'm pretty fiery, but I have a lot of water, which is related to your emotions. And the fieriness, I'm really passionate. I have been since I was a kid. You'll see that on the slides. Like, I was born with personality. So one thing that I want to point out on my houses here, there are 12 houses, and typically when you're looking at your houses, there would be 12 signs in there as well. But in mine, there are some intercepted houses, and on the ascendant and 12th house, both Sagittarius. Well, I took a course from an instructor in Ireland that is an international, lots of people take it. Well, I wouldn't say lots, but there are a lot of students. And in one of the videos, so this is Quantum Soul Guidance and Galactic Astrology. You can find it on my website under affiliates if that's something of interest. There was a video my instructor did talking about intercepted houses, and she showed an example which showed the houses almost just like mine. And she says on this video that if you see your ascendant and 12th house being the same sign, and the example she was using was Sagittarius, just like mine, it means you died young in a past life, possibly even before 40. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as I go along with the slides, how my astrology says that I died young in some past lives. And then to get the flavor, I just threw on something about the interception so you can kind of see the flavor that I was born with. I'm not going to read all of it since we have limited time, so I highlighted just little parts. So with me having an interception with the Aries, Libra, or 1st and 7th house, it means that it's going to be a struggle for me with assertiveness and saying yes when they mean no. That was my whole early life. I often said yes when I meant no, to not make waves, and felt like I had to. And then that causes struggles with maintaining relationships. And it says it's possible that the native was made to feel as if they were unlovable in a previous life, and they were meant to work on assertiveness and relationship skills. That lesson is a focus in this incarnation in order to achieve that. So that's life goal here, and stuff that was being brought in from the past lives that not my fault in this life. Not that really fault comes into it, but a lot of people kind of self-blame with things from their childhood and what they wish they had done better. And the thing is, a lot of times we recreate our childhood so that we have a chance to be in those same energies and choose different, make a different choice. So in the past, I was made unlovable, but in this life, I just have to know that within myself, I'm completely lovable. And then with the Cancer, Capricorn, or 4th and 10th house interception, it basically says you were not given the love and nurturing you needed growing up. You would therefore struggle with giving any of it as well. You don't like hugging or cuddling, and that's not entirely true. And you are seen as cold as a result, but I have been called cold. Because they thought that I was just too shy and quiet, and they just saw me kind of aloof. Even if you were given love growing up, past life issues would have caused you to be this way. So that was brought in, and all of the stuff that was going on with my parents was actually to help me overcome what happened in a past life by recreating it and letting my soul, with its free will, choose differently. And then it also says you struggle to succeed in what you do as a result of feeling powerless, which also hampers any self-esteem. Working on that one. That is, unless you were able to balance the issue back then. The way to balance is by asking yourself why you don't deserve to be loved and successful. You can't come up with an answer that you can back up. So that's where you start. So if anybody watching this has either of these interceptions, this is what it would mean for you as well. And then there are some by planets, and I'll just breeze over it. Your emotional nature was denied, hard time getting in touch with feelings, feel powerless. Relationships have a way of awakening key goals that are part of your soul. So in this life, relationships are really key, and I need to make sure I'm not fearing the wrong choices. May have been loved, but for some reason it never connected with you. Maybe you felt you were not conceived out of love, or that your parents had no love for you, but whatever reason that is unique to you, you have a hard time with love and confidence. Ultimately, loving yourself despite it all will be your saving grace. Okay, so that's the flavor. And then we've got past life themes. And you're going to see this throughout some of these slides, and this is what will help you, see how the astrology matches up with what I'm sharing. So with my North Node in Cancer, that would be lots of past lives of deprivation, lives of highly structured monasteries, convents, other places where participants were in strict community-oriented religious environments, positions of authority or respect, feudal lords, politicians, business people, and heads of households. And then on the flip side, with my North Node being in the 7th house, that would be past lives of personal achievements, self-sufficiency, independent action, result in consciousness unaware of team effort and partnership. So that means I had to do it all by myself, and I had to rely on myself in survival. So not so much a team activity. Warrior lifetime after lifetime. Now think about warriors, they're on the battlefield. You can't think about anybody else when you're on the battlefield. If you look away, your head gets chopped off. So you have to stay focused on you and what's in front of you. Rugged discipline, focused on self and survival. So this is kind of an interesting mix here. But there are some wonderful talents that come with it as well. So on the 7th house Libra side, they made fantastic counselors, diplomats, peacemakers, and that's saying in this life. So if that's your node, this would apply to you as well. They have a gift of clearly seeing and successfully communicating the identity and concerns of person A to person B and vice versa in a way that prompts mutual understanding, fair, harmonious compromises. So lots of skills in managing people, diplomatics, counselors, peacemaking, and then monasteries and convents. So the talent for Cancer in the 4th house is gift of being able to nurture and support others. Any profession where they nourish others physically, mentally, or emotionally is a joy for them. And they have a talent in real estate. So you will see some of that come in later when you look at any profession where they nurture others. So just for time constraints, I'm going to keep going. This is my galactic chart. And this is the top of it. So when you start reading a galactic chart, you want to start with Pluto. And I've highlighted that for you to make it easier. Over there. So as you can see here in my Pluto, I have a conjunct with Spica, which is is really close conjunct. And then same with Arcturus, even closer. But then I also have a trine with the Orion Nebula and some other places there. And the fact that that's so close, when I dowsed on it, I did get that I came from the angelic realm, and I have been called that a lot in my life, told that I was so sweet and angelic. Then after angelic realm, so think about the angelic realm as it's just all unity. Everything's one. It's etheric, it's beautiful, but there's not really emotions or physicality. You're just etheric. And think of it like a circle, and everything is just one. Well, the light coming off of the source with all the fractals coming off is us. And when the light comes off and we choose to leave, that hub, we can go and incarnate somewhere else. Well, the first place that I chose to incarnate was Arcturus, which to me makes sense, given the angelic nature, and then how in Arcturus it's a higher density, more etheric. I did get that we were physical, but it was in a more etheric way. So it was kind of a way for me to adjust from being part of the whole and then becoming an individual etherically. And then you can see, I mean, even in the next line, I went back to the nebula, but I do believe that I was watching over people in the Orion area. There were a lot of wars happening and people being oppressed. And even if who I am in this life is a judge of it, I know I would have gone to help. There would have been no hesitation. And then you can see that I traveled to other places like Alpha Centauri and the Pleiades, even Pegasus. This trine would indicate an incarnation, although there's a square here with Pegasus, which would be some kind of trauma or incompatible energy, perhaps something that I witnessed that stuck with my soul. Or something I did that I hadn't learned that lesson and I was still bringing it in. I'm going to move up here to Jupiter and Mars and just point out these connections with Surma. That's what I was talking about on the first slide. Virgo Surma is heavily connected to Jesus or Yeshua and the Essenes that were living in the caves of Qumran. These would indicate multiple incarnations with Jesus and the Essenes. And somebody had told me that years ago. In fact, it was Abby Black. And I don't think I believed her at the time. She told me that I was in his inner circle, and I was like, okay, sure. I don't think I believed her. But then years later, here I am staring at it on my galactic astrology chart, and okay, she was right. And then with these Shapley attractor, it's like this massive divine energy coming in while I'm there incarnating with them. And even Fulmelhot is bringing in divine archangel energy. And I think Cygnus looks kind of angelic to me too. Like the slides that I see of them, they have big wings like angels. And then Aquila right here with squares, again, incompatible energy. And Aquila is known for incarnating during Greco-Roman times. Well, who is persecuting Yeshua or Jesus Christ, if that's how you identify him? Romans, right? So I encountered trauma with the Romans. I don't think, let's see, I could have absolutely incarnated with them as well and been on both sides. That's completely possible. I just haven't really dived deep to that part of it yet. So my soul essence color, I got golden. And just on this next slide, this shows you where the golden ray comes from Archangel Uriel. And each of these royal stars are represented in my chart quite a bit. So that means that I'm bringing in Archangel Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, and Uriel just by being here. Their energy is going to be coming around me and people that are around me, which to me, that's why we come. Because if we can't change things from above and we're in outer space looking down at Earth and going, oh man, are they going to blow themselves up? We're like, there's free will. We can't intervene. So what can we do? We incarnate. So we come down here and then we forget who we are until we wake up. A lot of us are waking up, like ever since 2012, droves of people are waking up to who they really are and what Earth's history really is. Because we have kind of been duped. They have purposely told us the wrong history as a form of control. Anyways, when I checked, so normally my aura, and I found out my aura colors from a very professional, she has a podcast, Mystic Michaela, and I was obsessed with listening to her podcast for a while, Mystic Michaela. She's on iTunes and Spotify and all the good ones. And she has a Facebook group too that I joined. And then you can sign up for once a month to go on like a Zoom with them at a specific time. Anyways, because I did that and I was hanging out with them for so long, I got bumped to the front and told what my aura colors were, which was light blue and purple. But yesterday it was rainbow. And it really makes me wonder if hanging out with Alicia all weekend rubbed off on me. And I'm saying that with hearts and love, because when Alicia had her reading, she was rainbow, and I do not usually get rainbow. And I was like, really doubted it, asked like 3 or 4 times, like, fine, you said rainbow. And then here I come home and ask about my aura, and the only answer I'm getting is rainbow right after I spent the weekend with her. So start hanging out with Alicia, you'll get all the rainbow vibes, just saying. And then my main guide, which I actually didn't connect this to the color at first, I just had to look it up afterwards, but the main guide coming through was Archangel Uriel, which is known for the golden ray. And like I said, I had no clue when I channeled that, and then later looked and I went, hot damn. So then when I asked about the guides, all of the 4 royal stars, of course, all of those archangels are represented. They're all throughout my chart. But then I also have 33 ancestors coming in, which honestly, I don't doubt. I have actually a lot of them that do communicate with me. So yeah. And then Yeshua and Mary, surprise, surprise, after those lives that I just showed you. Interesting. So this over here on the left is talking about Lemuria and Atlantis. So if you have had your chart drawn by me, you can look at this and tell, like, proof in your chart of whether you were in Lemuria and Atlantis, which if you have that many placements, I would just say, yeah. You can douse on it, and it's not always that you were, but it's pretty common that these placements are indicative. So for Lemuria, we're looking at Lyrans, Sirius A, Pleiades, Ursa Minor, and ETs from Leo and Boots, which would be Arcturus. And then for Atlantis, it was founded by Pleiadians, Andromedans, Boots, Arcturus again, Nibiru, which actually Marie told me I have ties to Nibiru, which I had no other way of even hearing that before. And then Aldebaran, Antarians, Hades, and Sagittarians. So all of those placements, if you look throughout your chart, would tell you, you know, if you have a whole bunch of those placements with one of them, then I would just say, yeah. And then this is my instructor talking. From my experience with seeing charts of clients who had I would add on top of the above Alex Collier notes. So the above was coming from Alex Collier. Alpha Centauri to Lemuria and Atlantis, Vega, so Lyra Vega to Atlantis, but possibly Lemuria, Hydra to Atlantis, and that's a constellation, possibly also Lemuria, Cetus, so we're talking Tau Ceti, to possibly both, Draco to Atlantis, but possibly Lemuria too. So all of those signs, I have so many placements with all of this, I have no doubt. So this is just really showing you that the first slide that showed all my past lives, this is like stuff that backs it up. And then we can come back to this anytime, but I have very strong ties to Sirius A and Lyra Vega. Lyra Vega to me is like India and the yogis, and it's what I believe, or what I've read and heard, was that they were the ones that brought those teachings to India, which makes sense why I have such strong ties to that. And then Sirius A, they are actually descendants of Lyra Vega. So again, same group, but descendants. And then this life down here with the conjunct with Regulus does indicate royal lives. Doesn't have to be one. It could, you know, because we may not be living just one life at once. Alicia and I talk about this all the time. Some of these lives can be simultaneous. And I will tell you, when I go to sleep, sometimes I feel strongly that I woke up in another body. I've had dreams that you can't explain. And in the dreams, I was rescuing people from being human trafficked. You can't make that up. Like, of course I was waking up somewhere else. So I believe that now after, after all of this. So let's see what else we have. This is just talking about the Shapley attractor, and you could see that pretty heavily in my chart. There's at least 5 different placements with this. This is the most potent of the galactic centers, and there are 4 that you will see in the chart. But this one, they're anchors for cosmic light energies, very intuitive, may be drawn to holistic healings, art. They may embody divine courage, alignment with universal harmony, transmitters of divine consciousness. They're able to break down old patterns and structures to usher in the new earth paradigm. And look at, here I am. When you see who I was born to, that will really make a lot of sense. So here's Lemuria. I didn't channel a whole bunch about my lives in Lemuria, but I wanted to show you, again, more information from my instructor. And some of this information was taken from other people that she references here, but there were different eras to Lemuria. So when you're talking about Lemuria, it's a really big span of time. So that's just a brief thing about Lemuria, and I'll keep going because I think we have a short period. I wanted to show a map too, so that we could kind of see. Now, North America over here, we're right here in Oregon where my mouse is. If you just go 4 hours south of where I live, you're in Mount Shasta, and people commonly do call it Lemuria. They say it's the tips of Lemuria. So I don't know, but I feel like being 4 hours from Lemuria, I'm in Lemuria where I live. Like, it's just lush, beautiful everywhere. You know, we just don't think that it's a part of it because we're a little bit more north than Mount Shasta. But if you look at the mountains near me, sisters, they have the same elevation as Mount Shasta. So just saying, if you live in this area, we are blessed. And then with Atlantis, there were also different eras. So I just wanted to point that out too. And that's what, you know, it's saying that I had 5 lives in the Atlantean era seems kind of like a lot, you know, if you're just thinking about this one little era. But then when you look at this, I mean, look at the time span. Mu, almost 72,000 BC. And then the foundation of Atlantis, 32,000 BC, that's a big span. So that would make sense and support the idea that I actually did have 5 lives during that time, given that it was such a large span. And then I know that there have been at least 3 lives in ancient Egypt. I don't know a whole lot about them yet, but I do know, and I'm getting some feelings and downloads because I just channeled some of this yesterday, that they're going to be coming through. You'll see later in the slides the tie to Egypt. And then we have the ancient Mayan era. And this is really where I started as far as like the past lives people had been telling me about. I didn't believe right away that I had lives in ancient Maya, and I didn't believe who they said I was. I was like, okay, sure. But now I do start to believe it because I've been having visions and different things that make it make sense in my head. So just a little bit about the ancient Mayan era. They did have written word, and they had over 800 symbols for words. They were the first to use 0 as a placeholder, which is like, wow. They had there was use of hieroglyphs that were one of the most complex systems found on Earth, started being decoded in the 1950s. But unfortunately, a lot of the Mayan writings were lost during the Spanish conquest. So, you know, we have some, but not all. They were tracking the stars. And the interesting thing is a lot of people who have placements with the Auriga constellation would have lives tied to ancient Maya, and people or beings from Auriga were coming down and influencing them, teaching them about the stars and teaching them about irrigation and things like that. Before I switch the slide, they also had birthdays, happy birthdays, and every child in the village was named after the day of the week that they were born on. So there was probably like 50 Mondays and 35 Tuesdays, you know what I'm saying? So I just thought that was interesting of them, that was like part of their culture. But as I said, the beings from Auriga and, you know, possibly other places that I haven't read deeply enough about yet, they were coming down and teaching them farming, and they had a corn god, you know, goddess or whatever. So they were coming down and teaching them about really complex irrigation. Some of what they've found is just, it's not an easy feat for them to have done what they did and how advanced they were. Another weird thing though about them, they liked strange foods. They had no problem eating dogs, rabbits, frogs, tadpoles, or even grasshoppers. Yum. And then, yeah. So interesting. And then they also had death masks that they would be buried with to help them get into the new life, which I thought was just really cool. Plus, I've loved crystals for I can't tell you how long and been a gemstone crystal dealer for decades. And so it was really cool that like you can have a mask with it. And then I do know that at one point, I think it was in the very last life that I had in the ancient Mayan era, that I was sacrificed and I was a woman. So when I found this picture, I thought, how perfect. Apparently there was a drought. Excuse me. Um, what's funny is I got in my mind very suddenly that there was a drought and that that's why I was sacrificed. And then I doubted it because they're in the rainforest. They're next to the ocean and there's a drought. So in my mind, I'm like, how is that possible? But I looked it up and sure enough, there was a big drought. So um, in that life, there was a sacrifice for the drought. But the thing is, it wasn't upsetting because we grew up, that was our culture. I grew up thinking that that would happen someday and not being upset about it. Same thing with the parents. Like it was in their culture, it was an extreme honor. And only the royals were the ones sacrificed. But now my understanding is that they were sacrificing them because there were some forces, and I'm not going to say all reptilians are bad because they're not, but there were some reptilians that were more service to self oriented and they were causing a drought. I don't know if you've heard this before, and it's kind of wild to say it, but they've been able to manipulate weather from the skies for a very long time. In fact, I saw an article in one of the major news media outlets 2 months ago talking about how they figured out how they can manipulate lightning and where it strikes. So, I heard those things and I thought, how's that possible? But then I saw it in the newspaper and I'm like, okay, it's true. So what I believe happened, and I don't have proof of this, is that the reptilians caused a drought and I had to be sacrificed so that they would stop the drought. Um, like I said, there's no proof to that, but that's just the feeling that I had about it. And then I'm just skipping from ancient Mayan to Jesus because I don't have slides yet for those other eras as they had just come in yesterday. Um, but just to see, these were the caves that they were living in. You can see the holes there. And somewhere around the 1950s, they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it had all these additional books to the Bible. What do you know? And it had all the original writings. What do you know? So that brought about some changes to some of the modern Bibles. Even the Bible that my parents used got changed or edited based on those the scrolls that came out of those caves. So, and like I said, I did not believe the woman when she told me I was in Jesus's inner circle. Like, I thought she was nuts, at least about that part. There were other things that she said that I believed, but that one seemed too big for me to really believe. But now, given the mother I have and all of my studies, it's completely plausible to me, and it makes perfect sense why I could see through the religion of my parents very early on. Because deeply embedded in my past life memories, I knew the truth. Oh, and then before I switch, if any of you have placements with Surma in your chart and you want to hear about some of those lives, go look up Dolores Cannon right here in the bottom of the screen on the left. Jesus and the Essenes. You can get it on Audible or you can get the book. I recommend Audible so that you can listen and close your eyes and potentially get visions of things that were happening. And sometimes when I listen to Dolores Cannon books, I honestly feel that they're talking to me, like she wrote it for me almost. It's just pay attention to what sticks out when you listen to it or read it. The lines that really stand out to you are the lines that are really what you should write down as a download or as a message. Now, this life is one that also involves my friend Marie, and I was talking about it in the beginning. Honestly, when she first said Korea, I wasn't buying it. Sorry, Marie. I believe it now, but when she first said Korea, I wasn't buying it. I just didn't have that vibe. But then I walk over to my closet and there's Korean money staring at me. And then the memory of a psychic reader who I'll tell you about later telling me that all the answers were in the cedar chest. All the answers you've been looking for, everything you want to know is in the cedar chest. This woman had never met me. We were over the phone. She had no way of knowing that I had my grandmother's cedar chest in my living room with all the memorabilia I had collected from since I was little, honestly. And in that cedar chest was a calligraphy set from Korea that my dad had brought back. She and I texted these places and this life to each other at like the exact same moment, right as she said a feather was falling from the air. So this life, like I said, there's not a lot, but what I do know about them was they were very influential. So apparently it was a king and queen situation again. And I was Queen Yeonhee, and I don't know how to say that. And you can't even look her up. There's nothing on her. I've tried. And even if I tried to do it in Korean, I wouldn't be able to find anything and know what it said. So there's nothing on her. But in this life, Marie believes she was the husband, the king, and I was the wife. And then in the ancient Mayan one, she would have been my father. And I've seen that common thread happen with lots of different people that come to me and we review past lives. And when you have those moments and you're like, I know you. And that happens to me a lot. Yeah, it just, you have those moments with people and it all just, you start to get memories. So I've seen that happen with lots of people. And then I'm just moving right along so we can get to the end or the slides towards the end. The times that I had incarnated with the Franciscans, the funny part is I descended from Martin Luther, who was the reformer and follower of Francis Assisi. And that's like in my lineage. I started studying my ancestry, I was like 18 or 19, and I became really obsessed with like, where'd I come from? Who are we? Like, I remember being 3 years old, pinching my skin, going, how did I get in this thing? Looking out my eyes, like, what is this? How did I get in here? And then hearing my mother call my name, Tiffany, and I was like a little ways away. And I remember thinking, I think those people over there want you to go over to them. Do I have to do what they say? It's really weird that I can even remember that, but I do. And so it makes perfect sense that I would incarnate into descendants of the very people that I was in the past. Not saying I was Martin Luther, but I was with this order for sure. And then to descend from a follower of the order is just like kind of magical to find it actually in your ancestry too. If you're not familiar with the Franciscans, they were a Catholic order, really influential, honestly, did a lot of benevolent works. But I actually have St. Francis of Assisi sitting behind this cute computer right here. And I had him in my house way, way before I would have ever considered that I had lives with him. So that's pretty just interesting that he was already in my house and I had no clue. Um, there were 3 different orders. So when Alicia and I were like, I knew I had been with the Franciscans, but I didn't really know details yet. And Alicia had got that I was with, I want to say each order at least once, but definitely had 3 lives. And one of them was with the nuns. So I put this slide up here because Claire of Assisi she was a follower of Francis of Assisi, and she was supposed to marry some lord, and she really didn't want to. She wanted to go be a nun, and she wanted to follow Francis of Assisi, but there was not an order for females yet. So um, I wondered if I was her, and Alicia kind of hinted that maybe I was. So I'm not going to say yes or no, but I put this on here by instinct and intuition, not even really knowing. But it is interesting that she died August of 1253. So 53 is 8 and I'm August 8. Like there are some ties, to her birth and death information. And then you'll see that with some of the others that come through. She really was amazing. She went up against the Pope and they didn't want her to create her order because she was insistent that it was an order of poverty. She didn't want wealth. We see lots of ancient movies where the popes were pretty wealthy and well-to-do. They had gold and anything they wanted, but she didn't want that. She wanted peace and to do, harmonious ministry and humanitarian work. So it's pretty amazing that she was even able to do that. This is a piece of art from that era depicting her as saving a child by calling in an angel, saving a child that was about to be eaten by a wolf. I don't know anything about this story or whether it's factual or not, but it really shows her heart. And then here's one that is a hard one. And this one I did not believe. Abby Black told me this one maybe 10 years ago, that I was a French queen and that it was something to do with some War of Roses. And when Marie texted me, "Oh, you've been royal in a whole bunch of lives. You know that, right?" I was like, "Yeah, Abby told me that, and other people told me that." And I was like, "She said I was this one queen. Let me go look and see if I can find it." So I find it and I send it to her, and she's like, "Oh, that was you, all right. That was totally you." Um, so then after that, I just started reading about her and trying to like how in my mind, how could I be her? So I just kept reading and reading. But look, I was born, see at the bottom of the screen, 8882, and she died August of 82. Like, it's just too close for it to not be. And then even the story, so her father gets imprisoned. She's a French princess, but she's living basically in Italy. So this is, I want to say, close to Sicily. But her dad was king of Naples, and her mom was a duchess in her own right, who ended up ruling while the dad got imprisoned. Her grandmother was a queen. She was raised by all of these royal people who expected perfection, educated by top people. And then at age 15, she's married off for a peace treaty. So you can see in a lot of the lives, you'll see that I keep coming down for peace. And it's really important to me, even in this life. Long before I knew anything about past lives, I wanted to be a humanitarian very young. I've always said that that's what I would do in my end life days, is travel the world and do humanitarian work. So it's like, it fits me too. So, and then, oh, it also says this woman excelled all other as well in beauty and favor as in wit and policy, and was of stomach and courage more like a man than a woman. And in my earlier life, I had three brothers. I was definitely somewhat of a tomboy, but still a prissy girl too. But more conditioned like a man, less emotional. And I had a lot of stomach and a lot of courage. You'll see that later in these slides. I'm going to try to speed up. But basically, um, her husband goes insane and she has to rule the country. And she has all of his cousins, which it took me a while to figure out they were all his cousins. All of the people that she's fighting against, they're all family. But it took me a while to realize that, because they give themselves all these names that change who they are, and then you can't tell. So like, instead of just going off of their first name and their surname, they're going off of Duke of whatever, and they all could be cousins, but they're all dukes of different things, and then it looks like they're not. So the main person that I want to point out is Richard of York. He's a big problem for her in this life. This guy, Richard, she hated him because he was making life hard and he wanted her husband's throne, and she was not going to give it up. No way was she going to give it up. And she didn't get to have a child until way late in the marriage. But because she opposed Richard of York, it caused a different war. So her marriage ended the 100-year war between England and France. And they hadn't been able to find anything to end that war. It had been bloody and it had been going and going and going. But then they married her off, the war stopped, but then oops, she ticked off the wrong crowd and started a 30-year war called War of the Roses. And she was more in favor of the Lancastrians, who were red roses. And I would say I've always been more of a red rose in my life. And then the Yorkists were white roses. So my dad even planted Tiffany roses in his garden. We literally had the red roses and all of that. Actually, you'll see I've had that in many of my gardens. Um, so eventually there's wars and wars. Her husband goes insane. And it basically says he has no interest in ruling. He pretty much just wants to study religion and philosophy. Okay. Just keep that in your back burner for later down. But he suffers from bouts of schizophrenia. Like the moment she's 7 months pregnant, and he goes into a catatonic schizophrenia and she has to try to petition to rule, but they won't let her. In that era, being pregnant almost meant that you were debilitated and like a woman couldn't do anything. She's too fragile. She might lose, anyways. So there's this big opponent, Richard, Duke of York, and eventually on the final battlefield, Margaret loses everything, Queen Margaret. She loses her husband, she loses her son, so she loses the crown, and she gets imprisoned in the Tower of London for 5 years before her her cousin, who is the King of France, Louis. Louis, I don't know, he's like 20 something. There were so many Louis. He was like down the Louis, like 20 something Louis. He ransoms her to get her to France, and she lives out the rest of her days basically in despair and just so sad that she lost everything. So that's the quick version of it. Interestingly enough, I actually traced my own lineage to both the Lancastrians and the Yorkists. So I am both. It's joined. And you can see, like, we've got the Nevilles. Like, I didn't go through all of the names of these because it's just too long for the amount of time we have today, but you can see here as well, the Nevilles and the Percys, they were both on different sides, and then they married together to stop the fighting between them. And John of Gaunt was the king of England that all of them descended from. And they were all just fighting over which one of us gets to have the crown. But they were all like, they're all the same relatives and everything. So I'm just going to keep going, breeze past
I
that
love
to
that so
Chicago.
much, Tiffany. I think that's a good punchline to end us on, that, we're all the same relatives. And I need to get off. You're more than welcome to stay online and continue this. I do apologize. I just have to get
No,
my stuff going.
You have
So
a trip.
this has been just so lovely and such great information.
How about
And
to be continued?
yes, to
Yeah, I
do
was gonna
part
say a
2.
part 2. Yeah, this is really
Could
cool.
we have like 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me Chicago, Korea. This story ended up being almost identical, and I did not believe this one either. In fact, Alicia, you just told me this one, but when I read it, she gets all up in the business. She's the queen and the king isn't ruling or whatever, and so she gets all up in it, except in this one, she gets assassinated, or I did, assassinated because I was a mouthy woman who was educated, and they did not like that I was educated. And it's funny, it's the same archetype as the Queen Margaret. So, and then Native American, I'm just going to breeze down to show you some of my actual stuff. Well, maybe I won't. Let's just do the to be continued because it's too much to even try. So
We'll
I'll just
definitely have to
read
do
it.
part 2. Honestly, this has been so magical. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing with us and putting so much effort into this. And yeah, just really beautiful to understand not only your story, but kind of the way it works through time, because I've learned a lot, and started kind of reflecting on my own story a little bit and where there's connections. And yeah, I'm just so excited for this and for part 2. So thank you so much.
That'll be so fun. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and I love you both so much. And I'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Ciao. Love you
Good
guys.
night.
Take care. Bye.